Hey, what's up guys, it's BenBonk, and I've never entered a game jam. So with all this time in quarantine, I figured, why not just enter one? So I started off my game jam journey by looking on itch.io's jams page, and I eventually settled on the scorespace jam number 8, because it was coming up relatively soon for me. It had a really cool concept where game developers would have 3 days to make a game, and on top of that, there would be a theme, and you have to make a game that has a high score feature. And then after the game jam has ended and the game ratings have come out, so the top 3 games will get played by a bunch of streamers, and they'll try to compete for the highest scores, which I think is a really cool feature. So without further ado, let's get into the game development. So my first game jam experience started off at 6 p.m. on a Friday, in which I was waiting for the game jam theme to start with a call with my friends, and eventually the game jam theme did get announced. The theme was balance. Now initially I was thinking that the theme wasn't too broad, and I was thinking there's not that many games you can make with a balance, but as I thought more, I was thinking you can make so many different kind of games, like balancing money, balancing blocks, all these different kind of things, and there's tons of different things you can balance. But I spent the first hour and a half pretty much just thinking and drafting ideas, and I was really kind of stuck on what to exactly make. This was also going to be the first project I was working with a music producer, and his name is GizmoDude8128, and he's a really cool guy, and I messaged him pretty much throughout this whole entire game jam. He helped me a lot through the process and playtesting, so I'll make sure to leave a link to his Bandcamp in the description below. But he had a really cool idea, and I'm going to explain that idea right now. The game worked like this. You'd be a player standing on a fulcrum, which is a dice that just rotates. There'd be different zones in which you can kill enemies inside of those zones, labeled with these letters on your keyboard, so it's kind of like you have to balance your keyboard. You're going to be in the middle, and your pretty much goal is not to get hit by any enemies or fall off the fulcrum. Enemies will start swarming in your way, and you have to use your bow to shoot them, and once they fall to the ground, you will tilt your fulcrum based off how far they are away from you. So the farther they are away from you, the more they'll tilt your fulcrum. To kill an enemy, all you have to do is press the letter that zone he's in on your keyboard, and your goal is to kill as many enemies as possible before they reach you or you fall off your fulcrum. I thought this concept sounded really cool, and so I immediately got into Unity and started a new project. Unlike most developers, I really needed to get making my art for the game right away, so I started off by making a fulcrum, which is going to be what my player is balancing on, and I ended up making also my actual player and his bow. I then pretty much spent the rest of my night working on the foundation for my shooting mechanic and setting my scene up. So I woke up pretty early on Saturday and immediately got working on my enemy spawning system. I made an enemy would spawn randomly on the left or the right side of the screen. I started working on a lot of the functionality where you can shoot an arrow and it'll go towards an enemy. And for the next 2 hours, I pretty much spent a ton of time getting my arrow system so it actually shoot arrows, and my kind of bow system so I could actually spawn those arrows. And it took a lot of logic and kind of thinking for me to figure out how to find if there is actually an enemy inside of that zone, and if there is, to actually be able to shoot an arrow. And it took a ton of time, a ton of switching around things, but I'm really happy about how I got it working in the end. And it still wasn't the most polished after this day, but at least I had the basics and the foundation of where I could pretty much press the key and my enemy, my arrow would shoot that enemy. Shooting the enemies inside of the zones was definitely a big challenge for me, because I couldn't just do find object of type and just pretty much say, oh, if I find an enemy, then just shoot it. But I had to find all the things. I had to use 4 each loop, so I really don't have that much experience, but I'm really glad, and I learned a lot about, trying to find multiple objects within an array. And throughout this whole entire day, I also did add some more animations to the bow, and it took a ton of testing, but after quite a few hours of work, pretty much the whole morning's of work, I had to have a super basic system where a player could press a button in that zone and the arrow would somewhat work and just reach the enemy, although you couldn't destroy it yet, but it's still just the basics. At this point I was feeling a little burnt out from all this coding, so I went on a bike ride, and I immediately got back to work, and I made it so that my player can press the button and it would actually destroy the enemy in that zone. I also spent some more time making so my player actually flips to where he is shooting, and he actually has a wind up and shoot animation whenever he fires a shot. I also made sure to make some score UI, and so in the top right, as you can see, whenever I shoot an enemy, it adds a point to my score. Then for the next 2.5 hours, as you can see, I made some absolutely massive changes to the game, in which I spent a ton of time adding some post-processing effects, and just made my game look a ton better overall. I also changed the color of the boxes, and I added in this tile set background that I quickly drew in a sprite. And with that said, that was pretty much the end of day 2. Unfortunately, I did not get the most footage for day 3, but I started off the day by starting to work on my Fulcrum tilting system. I did this by making, whenever I shoot my enemy, instead of destroying him, I make him fall and play an animation whenever he falls to the ground. I then set up a system whenever my enemy collided with my Fulcrum, which I would check wherever my enemy, which zone he was in, and then based off which zone he was in, I would apply a certain amount of force to my Fulcrum just by rotating its Z value. So for example, if my Fulcrum, or if my enemy died in the A section, for example, which is the farthest away from the player, I might tilt my Fulcrum a lot, but then if he dies in the D section, I only tilt my Fulcrum just a little bit. This rotation system took me a ton of time and a ton of tweaking, but I'm really glad with the end result. This is not the end result that you're seeing right now. This is one of the more beta results, but I'm very happy with how I ended up making the rotation system work. Not only did I do the rotation system this day, I also did a ton of things like finalizing the game loop. I also made a credits menu, a in-depth tutorial, scene transitions, game over loop, pause, high score, all that kind of stuff that really made my game actually be a game. I also don't want to forget to add that I added a bunch of sound effects that my music producer guy found for me, and I also want to showcase that I implemented the music into the game. My friend made a main theme and a game theme, so I'll play a little snippet of those right now. Again, huge shout out to Gizmo Dude for making the music for this game. He did a great job and I can't thank him enough. With that said, that was pretty much the end of day 3. Now day 4 was the last day of the jam, and I had until 6 o'clock to finish my game. And I pretty much thought I was pretty much done with the game till I sent my game over to Gizmo Dude, and thankfully to him he got me a lot of playtesting and general advice that I really need to add to my game. So I actually spent a ton of time that morning working on things like a pause menu, all these small things, and getting just things fixed up and, play testing, all this kind of stuff, making the game get harder over time. I ended up making so my enemies spawn faster, move faster, and your Fulcrum tilts more over time, so pretty much just making the gameplay a more enjoyable experience. And that's pretty much what I did until about 2 hours left till the game jam was done. Finally, I submitted my game to itch.io. Or did I? See, throughout playtesting this whole time, I kind of decided I didn't really like the idea of shooting enemies and killing points. It just seemed not the best idea of balancing, didn't seem to fit the theme that well, and it pretty much just seemed like, you just kill these enemies, you're just trying to stay in balance is your second goal, just not let them reach you as your main goal. So with about 2 hours left to in the jam, I pretty much went home because I was on a walk, and I quickly, last-minutely changed the whole entire scoring system, which I'm very proud about. I think it made the game a ton better. I changed the scoring system from scoring points based off when you shoot enemies, making the score system make the more balanced you are, the more points you will earn per second. So I made it kind of has this theme where you have to stay more balanced so you earn more points, which I think was a great addition and totally changed the way how my game is played. For real this time, I submitted my game to itch.io and set up my page with about 15 minutes left before the jam ended. All in all, this was my first game jam, and I'm super proud of the game that I made. while it definitely isn't a perfect game and has some issues with the shooting, pacing, and just a few more things I'd like to add for polishing wise, I am still very glad of the game that I made. I think it has some great polish, and I'm just super glad that I got to make a game in 3 days, and a game that I'm especially proud of. Now the last thing I had to do is wait till Friday for the ratings to come in. So it is Friday right now, guys, and we did actually end up getting first place in the jam. I'm just absolutely blown away by the reception of the game. I just can't believe it did so well, and I'm so happy that I got to make a game in this jam, and so happy that everyone got to like it. There's so many good entries in the jam, but then there's so many good games to choose from, but I'm just overwhelmed that I actually ended up getting first place. So yeah, I guess my first jam I ended up getting first place, and I know the game still isn't perfect. I wish there's so many things I could just go back and tweak just to make the game better for the streamers who are going to play it, but I think I'm just going to end off this video here. I cannot believe I actually ended up doing this well. It was a complete shock to me, but thank you to everyone who played and rated my game, and this has been a great experience, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.